Who are the Lequios, 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 however one pronounces it? We've heard it all kinds of ways. But we see them in history. We also see it spelled different ways. We see them in history, especially around the time that the explorers were getting closer and closer to finding Ophir, especially as they're getting closer to the Philippines. Of course, it turns out Magellan identified them as the key to finding Ophir, because they were Ophir and Tarshish, or in Greek, Chryse and Argyre. The lands of gold and silver in all antiquity. It really goes back to Genesis 2, and we make that connection very firmly. Anyone who has viewed the 51 videos prior to this, and especially Solomon's Gold series, knows already we have put forth a case that is truly unshakable. This is not a case of history. Certainly not the case of sources, and one source here, and one source there, and, well, why did he quote that author? As if that is even a legitimate question. But anyway, this is a case across multiple disciplines, and well-structured in each genre, which is not easy to do, mind you, and most stick in their lane to one discipline. There are few who would even think to delve deep into the realm of science as we have without being scientists. We are not. Yet we handle it well. Dive into history without being an historian. Yet we have delivered accurate content for 3 years. Are there typos? Sure. Do I even misspeak at times? Oh, I'm sure. Is there a side note someone may take issue with? Certainly, guaranteed, there will be at some point. However, our case remains, as no one has offered disproof of these conclusions in 3 years. And nitpicking at what was sourced, what way, this way, that way, what was not, oh, you should have done this, oh, you should have done that. Who cares, man? Get over it and grow up. This is the adult world, and we're not playing these games. Just saying. No more. Certainly, character assassination has been a part of some of that, but let's not pretend one who began attacking us without ever watching but a 7-minute recap video in which we say there is no evidence in this video, so you'll have to watch the series, has any interest whatsoever in doing anything but tearing us down. We will stand, no worries. The reason these conclusions are too solid. In this video, we will identify the Lequios, or Lequios, Lequios, Luzos, whichever, of Luzon. And then, in the next, we are going to offer more information on finding Chryse. And it is solid. The Greek land of gold, that is, and this is good. However, we are excited because at the end of this video, we've uncovered a connection to the Lequios in Hebrew that will make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Well, at least it did ours, as we did not expect this at all. Later Christian writers for centuries associated the gold of Ophir with East Africa. This is from writer Charles E. Now. Now, that means it was proven wrong. East Africa was not Ophir. So you saw the writers shift their focus to the Far East, and rightfully so, because that is where Ophir will turn out to be. But reading further, but at the time of the Portuguese discoveries, Ophir was thought of as the Aurea Chersonesus, the Golden Peninsula of Ptolemy. You see it in Josephus, you see it in Pliny, and others record the same. They're all speaking the same language, no surprise, and they're all looking for this land of gold. But none of them went there, let's be clear. So they didn't actually know where it was. They were just honing in, trying to find it. Now, So you don't treat what they're saying in conclusion as fact. That would be nonsense. But their facts along the way that they are gleaning are accurate. See, that's the difference and the distinction, and an important one. Read on. In which that Greek geographer also placed Catagara. So Ptolemy also said Catagara, the land of gold, is Ariachersonisus, which is Ophir, which is Chryse. Okay, so he's just making the connection between all the things. But did he know where that was? No, he did not. Not specifically. Okay, so this Catagara, read further, mentioned by Pigafetta as the immediate trans-Pacific goal of Magellan. So get this straight now. Magellan's goal, just as Columbus, as we covered before in part 24. So anyone that hasn't watched part 24, go back and watch that before you attempt to debate on what Columbus knew or didn't know or said or wrote or etc. because it's there. We also covered in our Lost Tribes series. So the goal was to find Ophir and Tarshish, because that's the same land of gold. As that was his goal, follow what he did, and you will quickly realize, oops, Malaysia is not Ophir nor Chryse. Period. The end. There is no debate. There is nothing to discuss. It was disproven. Period. Britain has no case, and that's where this really comes from. You'll see this in scholarship, and you'll see it, and you'll see it, and you'll see it. It's propaganda. It's not fact. And the fact is, Malaysia is not Ophir. Now, but Magellan connected, here we go, Solomon's treasure, what's that? Ophir, and also known in Greek as Chryse, with something else he had read in Barbosa. In other words, Magellan knew Malaysia was not Ophir. Got it? If it was, he would not have switched sides with Barbosa as well, following him and gone on a new expedition to find what? Well, Pigafetta says Ophir. Essentially, it's the same. That's according to Charles now. And everything that we're truly reading when you put it all together in perspective, not just looking at what an author says. A lot of people say things, a lot of people make claims. Claims are very regular. You'll see them all the time. That's all India ever had, was a claim from the British. Even India didn't make the claim. Britain made the claim. Britain made the claim of Malaysia, not the Malaysians, who rejected it, really, when you look at what they did. Britain is the one that really is behind most of this. And none of it fits, period. But we'll keep going. Every one of these positions has to ignore historical fact in order to posit a theory. There you go. This is why we most definitely, completely dismiss any author's conclusion that flies in the face of history, and most especially the Bible. Because the Bible says what about Ophir and Tarshish? They are isles, not a peninsula. So, it just doesn't work. Now then quotes Barbosa. Facing this great land of China. Is Malaysia facing China? No. There are many islands in the sea, beyond which, on the other side of the sea, there is a very large land which they say is mainland. In other words, a large island, from which there come to Malacca every year 3 or 4 ships, like those of the Chins. You mean Chinese junks, right? Exactly. The Philippines is documented by Pigafetta to have several, by the way. Now, belonging to white men, we will explain this, who are said to be great and rich merchants. They bring much gold and silver in bars, silk, rich cloth, and much very good wheat, porcelain, beautiful porcelains, and many other merchandises. All merchandises found in the Philippines. Magellan digested Barbosa's work, we're reading further in Now's book, and with his own hand rewrote one passage. Now, if one was an ignorant blogger, they would then accuse Magellan of plagiarism or whatever. I don't know. It really, really, truly leaves me speechless with just how amazingly ignorant some of the comments have been in that blog. Really terribly libelous, slanderous, and in all kinds of ways, far beyond the pale in any line anyone could ever draw. Saying we're dishonest for changing slides and updating sources. That's so ridiculous. But anyway, which consisted of a list of places between the Cape of Good Hope and the Lequios that were known but not yet occupied by the Portuguese. So let's be clear, Malaysia was already occupied by the Portuguese at this point. Thus, they are not the Lequios. Now, why is that important? You'll see next. Barbosa writes, from Malacca, they take the same goods as the Chins, the Chinese, take. These islands, they're islands, are called Lequios. In one version, Lequis. The Malacca people say that they are better men and richer and more eminent merchants than the Chins, the Chinese. Read the Boxer Codex, and it illustrates a very distinct difference between Filipinos of that era and the Chinese. The Filipinos wore much gold. Why? Because they were the land of gold, even according to the Chinese in their history, who recorded over and over and over again. And that gold has now been found. Thus, full circle proven. The Boxer Codex is fact, not a fairy tale. Now, does Malaysia have that history? No. Does any other land on earth? Good luck finding one. Now continues. This is the key. Magellan's version substitutes for Barbosa's Lequios the words Tarshish and Ophir. The biblical Tarshish and Ophir associated with Solomon. This is from Barbosa's journal while in Malaysia. While there, Magellan found out where Ophir was, and it was not Malaysia. There is no overcoming this for any land, and there is no debate, period. Magellan found Ophir. Done. While in Visayas, Antonio Pigafetta, who traveled with Magellan, the historian who chronicled everything, writes, from Visayas, towards the northwest is the island of Luzon, which is at 2 days' distance, a large island, indeed, to which come to trade every year 6 or 8 junks of the people called Lequios, Lequios, same people. It's there. Pigafetta says they are in Luzon, not in Taiwan, not in Malaysia. And Magellan says they are Ophir and Tarshish. Done. He goes on as he writes, and we just put it on the screen so it's there, but that's an excerpt later, where he describes the junks. And he says that one of these junks carries as much cargo as our ships. So was he talking about a canoe? I mean, did Magellan arrive in a canoe? No. Yet you'll see stamps, even, from the Philippines, endorsed by historians, who somehow arrived at the conclusion that a junk could be considered a canoe. No, it can't. Certainly, Pigafetta, the sailing historian, knew what a junk was, and he meant it. And then he describes it. He goes on to describe the complete construction as 2 stories tall. 2 stories is not a canoe. So, the Lequios are from Luzon. This is settled. Magellan tells us they are Ophir and Tarshish. The Portuguese Pinto also encountered the Lequios in large junk ships. We discovered a good haven eastward where in the land of Cambodia, I assume, distant some 6 leagues from the firm land, we met a junk of Lequios. Now, these Lequios were infamous on the seas, according to different accounts, and they would even carry dignitaries. This one had dignitaries from another country, in fact. The author we quoted earlier, Charles E. Now, goes on to draw conclusions, and once again, he forgets the Philippines even exists. He skips right over it and claims it must be Taiwan and Japan because Ophir is north of the equator in Southeast Asia. That is pretty much his reasoning. Now, you can read his whole work. We're not going to cover his entire work. And every time we pull a quote out of a book, no, we don't go and cover the whole book. And yes, we look at their reasoning rationale, and we don't agree with their conclusions. We don't typically cover them. So, he believes Taiwan and Japan are Chryse and Tarshish. Chryse, Ophir, and Tarshish, Arga. The problem is, history tells us Japan is not the Lequios or the Lequios. And Taiwan has nothing in way of history, yet Philippines has a massive, abundant amount. We just showed you, pinpointing Luzon specifically as the location. And it just so happens to have a whole lot more gold than any of those areas, which is the principal source for identifying Ophir. And scientifically, we have that data now for the whole earth, and the Philippines leads those nations by far. Pinto narrows this down, but again, we already narrowed this to Luzon as the location of the Lequios, according to Pigafetta. So he lists areas in Malaysia and Indonesia and heads northwards to China, Japan, and the Lequios. Now, this reference does not rule out Taiwan in this listing. No, it doesn't. But to ignore the Philippines would simply be ignorance. French explorer Pirard de Laval knew Luzon was the Lequios. The Indians knew, and so did Portuguese Pero Fidalgo. So again, according to Magellan, all of these are pointing to Ophir and Tarshish. Tome Pire writes, the Lequios bring swords worth 30 cruzados each, and many of these. Many. Cool. It appears a cruzado is equal to that of a Spanish ducat. 30 ducats in today's value in gold would be about 4,500 US dollars. This is a serious sword and a serious amount of money, and they had many of them. Wow. One must wonder if maybe these swords are gold-plated, perhaps, like the daggers of the Ophirians. And what about Japan? How do they fit into this? Well, again, this is why we do not follow conclusions from authors like Now, who record good information and then go and draw poor conclusions against history and the Bible for that matter, which we'll cover in the next video a little, as Japan is not the Lequios, and it's not Ophir. The island of Japan, according to what all the Chinese say, is larger than that of the Lequios. Japan's largest island, by the way, Honshu, is more than twice as large as Luzon, the largest island in the Philippines. So that does fit. They do not often trade in China because it is far off, and they have no junks. What? They have no junks. Doesn't mean they don't have ships, but they don't have junk ships. But that's a key because junk ships are associated with the Lequios often in these quotes, including even Pigafetta, as we shared already. Nor are they seafaring men. See, Lequios have junks and they are seafaring men. Japan is not. The Lequios go to Japan in 7 or 8 days and take the said merchandise and trade it for copper, gold and copper. Now, again, two resources that fit the Philippines, and also the trip in days also fits the trip from the Philippines. So very reasonable that all of this comes together, and this just affirms everything else we've covered. Japan does not qualify. Note the Lequios are known to trade what? Gold and silver, and this is gold and copper, and yes, there's copper found in great abundance in the Philippines. So, Chryse, Ophir, Argyre, Tarshish, indeed. For a while now, we have used a definition for the Hebrew for this word from Ancient Philippines blogspot. In the beginning, in fact, we tried to quote local sources. And you'll see in the description box, we mentioned those guys. We also mentioned Bob's blog as well. It's all there. It's been there for 3 years. We've always, given them some credit. And those are worth reading because really, that's where we started with the history portion. We started reading their stuff and then we started branching out from there. Yes, we verified everything that we could. And if there was something that we couldn't verify, such as the gold found in 1st century Egypt as easily, we took it from numerous sources, so we felt pretty good with it and went with it. And turns out it's proving to be fine as a reference. So far, our sources, by the way, check out to be very good. So, to gather or glean, which sounds like trade, which fits Strong's saying persuasions, persuasiveness, it's very similar. Like to trade or barter or bargain, essentially. All the same. We have mentioned before, this is even very direct as a Greek word. Leukos, meaning white, bright, and brilliant. Now, why are these called, we shared earlier, white men? Well, it does not make them Chinese nor Japanese, and I think that's probably what's driving Nowell's logic, but you got to follow a lot more than that because there's abundant, overwhelming clues that it's Luzon. So obviously the Lequios are not Chinese or Japanese. They can't be because they are listed along with them as separate, so they're not the same. And again, they're identified very specifically. So it does not make them either of those races just because they are white. So they're white because this is an ancient reference to Solomon's navy, who were a mixed group of Phoenician sailors who were white, and Hebrews who are not white, dark-skinned. There is no history that supports Hebrews in ancient times as white. We have Egyptian pyramids and hieroglyphics, and they're showing that the slaves during the time that Israel was enslaved were dark-skinned, medium brown, and black. So just doesn't fit. Don't see any white rabbis there lugging on bricks. Haven't seen that yet with sunburns, and doesn't work. So this is why a Filipino could be a Lequios, because they're both white and dark-skinned. And of course, we make a connection in our Lost Tribes series where we cover that in far more detail. We're not going to get into that in this video. We're trying to keep this short for this series. But even in Tagalog, Hiram, the Phoenician, the admiral of Solomon's navy, means to borrow. or essentially trade as well. Now that is monumental when you think about it. How does that happen? However, let's go deeper with this word, because it was something we saw that we really wanted to explore, and wow, does it prove something out very, very interesting. Both Barbosa in some copies and Pigafetta refer to the Lequios with a spelling basically Lequios. And this becomes incredible, because Lequios in Hebrew is actually the name of the grandson of Manasseh. Manasseh was the son of Joseph, one of the lost 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel. Wow. Now, there it is right there, 1 Chronicles chapter 7. Could this actually lead to a connection to the lost tribes of Israel in the Philippines? Well, it would take an awful lot more than that. And that's why we produced an entire series of over 25 videos. Though there's someone out there who thinks they can watch a 7-minute recap and actually tell you everything that we conclude and how we're wrong. Yet they haven't even reviewed the case. Einstein said it best. The height of ignorance is what? Condemnation without investigation. Well, you'll have to watch that series, but this is amazing. So the Lequios, who are they? Well, taking it a step further, they are most likely those from Ilocos, Ilocanos especially. Have authors mixed and confused over the centuries on this? Of course they have, especially the British, who with the help of the Americans have worked so hard to suppress this truth, which really began to be suppressed in full around the time that the U.S. took over the Philippines. The good news is this. This is not actually hidden. It's just obscured in a false paradigm that you and I can smash. If one cannot leave that paradigm in their thinking, however, it may be difficult for them to see what has become so obvious to us and most of you. The evidence just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting, and in comparison, Malaysia has nothing but speculations of authors. That's it. They have zero actual fact to support any claim, and frankly, the local Malaysians don't seem to actually make a claim. Just Britain does. They are the ones that propagated it, and they are the ones who've tried to prop it up all of these years. But it has always been a smokescreen with no evidence, because speculations of authors is not evidence. The Philippines has the hardest evidence possible, as it leads the world in gold in all of history. It is fact. It has the number 2 untapped gold reserves, or deposits, in the ground on Earth. And it is a fact, it has a concurrent history of gold mining far predating South Africa, who is number 1 today in untapped reserves, but not in history. They have only been in a gold rush status for about 100 years. That does not qualify. Then, all the scripture, history, archaeology, geography, science, language. You have got to be kidding to even attempt debate on this. One could try to disprove 90% of all the history we even cover in this series. And still, the Philippines would win the debate hands down. There is no contest, and no other land even in the running. The Philippines is the land of gold, Ophir. Thank you for watching Solomon's Gold series and our 100 Clues the Philippines as Ophir. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the bell. Share this video with others. Friend us on Facebook at The God Culture _space original. And check out our website at thegodculture.com. Our email is thegodculture@gmail.com, and we are scheduling conferences now for 2020. We just need hosts. Thank you all for your prayers, comments, encouragement, and support in every way, especially those on Patreon who have been faithful. Thank you. This has made a tremendous difference. We have a large conference announcement, in fact, coming up very soon. So, look out for it. Yah bless to all.